We are in section 3, the organizations and people dimension for the service configuration management practice. From an exam syllabus perspective, we need to understand and apply the roles and competencies of the practice. There are mainly two topics here. 3.1 is about understanding the various roles and the responsibilities. We mainly have 4 roles here: the configuration manager, configuration coordinator, configuration librarian, and resource owner or custodian. Then we will learn how to position the practice in the organization structure, meaning how to set up the organization structure for this practice. ITIL 4 has defined 5 competency codes. These are L, A, C, M, and T. L is for leader, A, administrator, C is coordinator or communicator, M, methods and techniques expert, and T for technical expert. This is also covered in the DPI certification, the Direct Plan and Improve certification, under the Strategic Leader qualification, and also which is under the Managing Professional qualification. Leaders, as you know, they make decisions, they delegate work to others, they oversee, supervise, they provide incentives, they motivate their teams, and evaluate the outcomes, results to make sure they are leading the team towards the goals. Administrators, they assign tasks, they prioritize tasks, keep records, perform ongoing reporting, and initiate some simple improvements. Coordinators and communicators, they coordinate between multiple parties, making sure communication is going on between them, and run campaigns to make people aware about what's going on as to what kind of initiatives or any information to be supplied to them. The methods and techniques expert, these are not technical expert, but they know the various work techniques, certain work methods. They document procedures. For example, they may be good in the Scrum or Kanban or some of the software development methods or any of the system development methods. They provide consulting on processes. They analyze work to sometimes investigate some root causes of problems. And they also look at continual improvement opportunities and provide the methodologies. For example, they might provide a 7-step methodology for continual improvement, which is part of the service value system in ITIL 4 under the continual improvement model. Technical experts are highly technical. They have the subject matter expertise and they have their expertise to perform technical assignments. Now, for the exam, we don't have to know the competency profile for the roles in this service configuration management practice, but generally we need the methods. The M, T, C are more common, and of course at the upper level we need the leadership as well, and there is some amount of or a good amount of administration as well. We begin by understanding the two roles together, the configuration manager and the configuration coordinator, though there is a difference between them. And the main role or the key role of the practice is the configuration manager. They oversee the overall service configuration management approach, and they also oversee the CI lifecycle models for all the configuration items in scope, which means they need to understand how each configuration item type will run through the various steps or phases of the lifecycle. For example, the CI will be created, it will be maintained, it may be relocated, it might go for end of its use. So those are part of the CI lifecycle. Depending on the nature of the CI, it could be an application CI or a hardware CI or whatever. And so this role is usually performed by a dedicated person, and that happens in many organizations. In larger organizations, which have many locations, and when such industries or such organizations do their business in multiple industries, then the configuration manager cannot work alone. They also need several configuration coordinators who have similar responsibilities, such as being involved in the configuration management approach and the CI lifecycle models, but they specialize in a particular CI domain, territory, industry, and so on. So for example, a configuration manager might have 2 coordinators. Each of those coordinators is working on the CIs for a specific territory of the organization or a specific business domain. So let's look more detail into the configuration manager, which is the key role in this practice. They are typically responsible for the following. They manage the service configuration management approach. They have a wider perspective of the practice and how the practice should be defined. But they also communicate the approach and procedures to other stakeholders. They will involve, of course, the coordinators whenever needed for such activities. They also integrate this practice into several value streams, such as the change enablement value stream or the incident management value stream and so on. We'll take a look at them afterwards. And actually, it has been covered in the previous module, the value streams and processes section or module itself. The configuration manager also decide whether new resources should be included and whether new resource types are coming in within the configuration management approach. And then the lifecycle models for those resources will also have to be defined. They also manage exceptions. Different situations could occur where something has not gone off okay. They also ensure that CI lifecycle models are being followed. They ensure that the CMDB is verified on a regular basis and continuous basis, both, and ensuring compliance to the practice requirements. Then, for example, maintaining information in a proper way and making it cost effective. Then optimize and automate the practice so that because manual activities will be quite a lot in this practice unless they are automated, because a lot of information has to be maintained and need to be kept accurate, reliable, and current. And also the manager reports on the practice performance. For example, what are the costs and how much information is being used and so on. So those were the configuration manager and the supporting configuration coordinator roles. We also have the librarian role, which exists in some organizations only, not all. They are involved in manually updating the configuration data, also to verify the CMDB on an ongoing and periodic basis. And they also process requests as needed for configuration information. In one of my work assignments, I had a couple of configuration librarians. They would be involved continuously in updating data for any new devices that were brought in or new applications that were commissioned in the service organization. And sometimes I would request them to provide me version numbers of certain applications. And this is an important role where the automation is less and there is a lot of demand for requests, continuous requests for information about the configuration items. And that's why I had that in my case. And eventually we moved into a lot more automation, and after which we didn't require those two librarians. We cut down into half, and it was not even full time eventually. And when there are librarians, then this role is rarely supported by dedicated resources. And for example, in my case, when I even had one or two librarians, they were not full-time assigned. They were doing other work as well, technical work, and at the same time, they were doing the librarian work. And the best thing is to have the resource owner do this work, perform the librarian work. I was, for example, at certain points, I was a resource owner for networking devices, and I would do the IT asset management and also the service configuration management for those network assets. So I was not a dedicated librarian, but actually a resource owner performing the librarian role as well as my other management and technical roles as well. Resource owner, they are known as a resource custodian as well. It's an individual or a group of people that ensures that a resource or group of resources in the organization are utilized correctly. So for example, when I maintained those, when I was owning those network devices, I was making sure that they were being used by various initiatives such as operations or projects within the company. If not, whether some other new initiatives could use them, or if in the worst case, if they're not being used, then can they be let go of in a good way? For example, let go of them and assign them to a different department for their use. And of course, main thing is to develop and maintain the CI lifecycle models if one is a resource owner. So I was actually looking at those network devices or storage switches, how once they were brought in, how they need to be commissioned. For example, are they for will they be, for example, phase one could be that they will be put into use for a certain service, and phase two could be where there are some enhancements to those devices, and phase three would be ongoing maintenance. It's not as a specific, it's more of an operational phase, and then eventually when the device is no longer needed or gets old, it needs to be replaced or just given off. Assuming that the operations that need the device are no longer needed. Then also the same lifecycle model need to be applied to the resource throughout its life cycle within the various practices and value streams of the organization. This is also something the resource owner has to ensure.